Alright guys, before we get into today's video, I want to give a shout out real quick to a new channel, Juice Stacker. You guys go over and check out Juice Stacker. The guy has a lot of knowledge about investing and flipping and stuff like that, and he keeps it 100% real. He has a lot of technical breakdowns and stuff, so go over and check out Juice Stacker. I'll put a link in the description. Hey, how's it going everybody? Expat Stacker coming to you with a discussion topic video. Before I get into the topic of the video, I want to say thank you to all my new subscribers, and if you're not subscribed, please go ahead, and if you like the video, subscribe. Really appreciate all of the support from everyone, and actually that's how I came to the topic of today's video. I love interacting with the audience, and I love learning from you guys, the audience, as we go ahead and take a look at some offerings from the Perth Mint, which in my opinion is the supreme mint among all of them. And another thing that is supreme, that is unrivaled, is the collective wisdom that we can get from each other. You know, these days there's a lot of talk about the potential of AI, artificial intelligence. And why is AI so special? What's so great about it? Well, basically, human beings, in order to learn things, we need to spot patterns so that we can adapt and adjust our behavior and kind of predict what's going to happen with some level of certainty. And basically that's what AI does. You may have heard about big data, and basically big data is just a lot of data that is analyzed by a supercomputer, an AI, and it thinks for us about all of the potential possible outcomes faster than we can do it. So it processes information, a lot of information, and gives us the most likely potential outcomes way faster than we could ever do it. So that is why I believe in the collective sharing of experience and wisdom here on YouTube. And yes, I have a small audience compared to some other channels, but it doesn't actually matter, because I actually value each and every individual comment. I try to respond to every single comment that I get, and I do not judge people based on whether they just started stacking, or how old they are, or where they are, or their gender, or their religion, or their political persuasions, or anything like that. Those things may contribute to your decision making as it relates to stacking, but just because you may believe one thing that I don't necessarily believe, or necessarily agree with, or even necessarily like, that doesn't mean I'm going to dismiss what you say. Guys, I really honestly mean this. I can't remember what video it was. I think it was about something about why do I stack, and I was showing off my children's stack that I'm building for them over time. And I asked everyone, to leave comments with why they stack, and I believe it was Unknown Stacker. Apologize if I'm getting that wrong, but I believe it was Unknown Stacker who left a comment and said, that he's only 14 years old, and he's like washing cars, and he's making do with the best he can. He said that he stacks because it's his hobby and a great way to save money. And I realized from that comment, that the reason that we stack changes over time. I first kind of learned about real money and precious metals from a politician a long time ago named Ron Paul, back in the early 2000s. And at the time, I had no means to accumulate precious metals. I was a student at the time. I was also working two jobs, just like I am now, but they were part-time jobs because I was also studying. And they were out of my reach at the time. But ever since then, I've been learning about economics, socioeconomics, politics, geopolitics, and many other things, philosophy. These things all interest me. I mean, basically, Dr. Ron Paul is the reason why I got into all this stuff in the first place. Before that, I didn't really know or care that much at all about precious metals or politics or economics or anything. I basically felt like um, the authorities in the country are there to set the rules in their favor, and they don't really care about the rest of us. That's how I felt. But the things that Dr. Paul was saying really inspired me and gave me hope, because it's about personal and individual liberty and economic sovereignty. And just to get back to my audience, Unknown Stacker left that comment, and I thought to myself, man, this kid is amazing. I mean, this teenager is amazing, and he uh, is doing something that I really didn't even. It wasn't even on my radar. I didn't pay attention to it until I was, in my early 20s. So he got like a 10-year jump on me. And then I didn't even really start accumulating precious metals because I was ridden with debt um, until my 30s. So um, in that regard, he's got like a 15, 16-year jump on me. So that's awesome, and I'm not even gonna say I wish I started earlier or anything. I think I may have said that actually in the comment, but honestly, we all have our own journey and our own road. And so that's why I don't get upset when people have different opinions than I do. I can learn from even people that I don't necessarily like. I can learn from their mistakes. I can learn from their successes, and many more things. And just because I have a different opinion than somebody at the moment doesn't mean that maybe later I will share their opinion, or maybe later they will share my opinion, or perhaps we'll both have different opinions later on. And so, getting into the actual topic today, the reason I'm showing gold and silver, and the reason I chose only Perth Mint, is because, in my opinion, the Perth Mint is the best. And a lot of the things that I'm going to say today about gold and silver depend on your opinion. It depends on your definition of certain words and what you think is going to happen and your background knowledge. In the same video that I talked about with Unknown Stacker, there were also people who are retired and who have different experiences with gold and silver. And that was also part of what led me to realize that the reason we stack over time changes. It wasn't just only Unknown Stacker's comment, it was also the comments from the retirees and their perspective and their experience. And so that's what I mean. Our collective wisdom is stronger than any one individual, and it can lead us to have more well informed opinions by collecting more experience, wisdom, and data. So, let's talk a little bit about investing in gold and silver. And I use the word investing. I've seen many videos and comments and opinions that gold and silver are not investments because they do not pay dividends, because they don't collect interest, or things like this. Also, I've heard that they just have only one purpose, which is real money and a hedge against inflation. Um, but I don't think that that is the only definition of what an investment is. I just mentioned that I went to university, right? Um, and going to university, I got into a significant amount of debt. Not the same as a lot of other folks, but significant amount of debt. I've paid it off since. But why did I do that? Why did I knew that debt is bad. I at least knew that before entering university. And so why did I expose myself to a huge level of debt when I had no income? And honestly, the economy wasn't doing so well. Well, because it was an investment, right? I knew that by investing in my own human capital, by getting an education, that it was going to give me a benefit. Anything that would benefit you later, you take any action now that would benefit you somehow later on, and that is something that I believe can be considered an investment. So, gold and silver can be real money, and they can be an investment, in my opinion. And they do not have to pay dividends, they do not have to pay interest in order to be considered an investment. Some investments pay dividends, some investments pay interest, some investments will give you a new income revenue stream. Like, for example, if you own a house or an apartment that you rent out to folks, that isn't a dividend, that isn't interest, that's just a new revenue stream. Now, other investments do not pay dividends or interest or any kind of revenue stream at all. Those investments are gold and silver, right? There are other things that are similar, like, for example, art. You could buy a piece of very expensive art or collectible art, and that could be considered an investment because its value will go up over time, presumably. And so it's not only gold and silver that are investments which behave in this way. There are different asset classes of investments, and different asset classes have different definitions and characteristics. If you disagree with me about this, I would love to hear your opinion. Once again, I am not trying to say that I'm right and any individual is wrong. And by the way, I'm not responding to any one individual, as you've heard already. I've already talked about two or three different um, channels and viewers that I've interacted with. So I'm not responding to one particular person or viewer. It's just a collection of my interactions with my audience, which I love, both when we agree and when we disagree, and even when they think maybe they're not saying anything extremely profound. To me, I am putting all of that contribution together as part of the experience and wisdom and knowledge that I'm gaining from you guys. And also, I'm just kind of a people person, and I am a laid back person. So I just like interacting and joking around even sometimes. There's a lot of utility I find in that. Um, but just to get back to the discussion of gold and silver, uh, how are they different and how are they the same? You might hear a lot of different YouTube channels where they say something like gold and silver are similar, but they're different. I think I've said that in a few videos even. And then they might say something like gold is going to do what gold is going to do and silver is going to do what silver does. And I don't know. I mean, that's true, but also, like, for somebody that doesn't know what those things are, that's not really a statement that's helpful. So I just want to give a few basic opinions about what I think about these investments. Okay. Uh, First of all, what are the similarities? Well, silver and gold are both precious metals. They're both hard assets that you hold and therefore you completely control, so there's no counterparty risk. And the other thing is, big similarity that they have is their supply. They both are mined out of the ground. And so the suppliers and the supply chains and the methods are very similar or the same. All right. Now, there are other similarities, but I don't want to go too much in detail with that. I'm just going to talk now about the demand side. So, what's the difference between what drives silver demand and what drives gold demand? Well, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear. Oops, sorry for the glare. I would love to hear if you have a different idea about this or another idea about this that you want to contribute. Um, in my opinion, most of the demand for silver comes from two places. All right. First is retail investors, which is like us stackers, right? Central governments and some institutional investors also do stack silver, basically. But I would say that most of the investment demand probably comes from retail investors, and I think that's what kind of drives it a little bit more. And then the other side is from industrial demand. Um, and that is, those two things are what mainly drive silver, in my opinion. Okay, again, it's just my opinion from my experience. I don't, this time I do not have numbers or facts specifically to back what I say. I could go ahead and get that, but I'm just sharing some opinion. This is just a conversation, all right? I would love to be challenged by you guys and hear your thoughts, opinions, and facts. So feel free to do that. Now, my views on gold. What drives the gold demand? Well, in my opinion, there's a lot less industrial demand for gold and a lot more of institutional demand as well as retail investor demand. Institutional investors and retail investors, along with central governments, drive the gold price. That is my opinion. And that is quite different than silver. It's purely a monetary metal, gold. Um, Whereas silver, as I mentioned, has the industrial demand, which is just completely different than investment demand, right? So gold is purely a monetary metal, in my view. I mean, it just only the governments, only the institutional investors, only the retail investors, they're just investing in it. It has some industrial properties, like if you have a credit card or a USB or something, there's a little bit of gold on there, but really it's not compared to silver. It's not really a industrial metal. Institutional investors look at gold as an investment metal, as a monetary metal, and they look at silver as an industrial metal, and that's pretty much what I've come to know over the years. So therefore, what drives gold demand and what drives silver demand and what drives the price are very different. So the supply is very similar, however, the demand and the use for it very, very different. And I've heard some people also say that silver is risky or that it is more speculative. Um, I understand the sentiment there. They say that in comparison to gold, which they view as much more stable. And yes, gold is more stable. It is safer. But I don't know that I necessarily agree that silver is risky. I mean, compared to gold, yes. But compared to stocks or ETNs or you know, leveraged financial paper assets, right, that are super risky, or just derivatives trading. Is silver risky compared to those things? No, it's not. So whenever you're using these descriptive terms for gold and silver, it has to be considered in comparison to what, right? I kind of had to explain all of this to my wife, and she was more in favor of holding cash. She was saying that silver is risky, right? When I showed her like the historical chart, and I said, "Well, that's true, but you know, as compared to holding just cash, holding cash involves its own risks. You're just basically allowing your currency to be devalued by inflation. So that's also a risk, right? Everything you do is a risk. I mean, honestly, an asteroid could come tomorrow and strike Earth, and it could be solid gold. And then what would happen to the gold price, you think, right? I mean, they learned how to make diamonds in a lab, and I know that gold is an element, so it wouldn't be as simple as creating it in a lab. But guys, go check out Street Tips. Go check out the YouTube channel Street Tips. The guy basically recovers silver, so he's not making it, but it's recovery, right? So there are other ways to get it, and um, I mean, those things, depending on how widely they're done, can affect the price. So everything is risky, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't think about. Um, and it's very difficult to take all these complex pieces and all these unknown circumstances and factors and put them together and decide what we're going to do. I don't know if you guys recall, but I can't remember the name of the spaceship, the space shuttle that exploded. It took off from Florida. Was it Columbia or Challenger or Discovery? I don't remember which one it was, but anyways, one of them exploded, and the reason why it exploded is because the day that they were supposed to launch, there was bad weather, so they decided to delay the launch. These are the scientists and the engineers and everything over at NASA, so very smart, capable people. And they decided that it was best to delay the launch because of the weather. So the space shuttle sat on the platform overnight, and overnight it happened to freeze. And in between the fuel uh, container and the rocket booster where the fire comes out, there's a ring very similar to this type of ring here, which acts as a barrier between the liquefied fuel and the flame. Because if the flame were to reach up into that liquefied fuel container, it would explode. So there's a ring very similar to this one. But because the space shuttle sat on the platform overnight, the weather dropped down to below. It froze, and this ring froze in between the rocket booster and the fuel. And then as it dried, it cracked. So when the space shuttle actually took off, it held for a little while, but once it was in the air, it it fuel leaked through, saturated through the ring, and then the flame reached up into the fuel container, and the whole thing exploded. So why do I say that? It's because it's very difficult for us to, as human beings, take all of these different small little pieces and synthesize all of this information and put it all together and say what's going to happen and uh, accurately be able to synthesize all of those things. So why do I say that? It's because I want to say that gold and silver, guys, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? They are different. They are different, and that's very important. But we also have seen over thousands of years, I've been talking a lot about science and big data and stuff, but what about history, right? We've seen over history that gold and silver are sound money, and that they can protect you, right? That they offer economic security and safety, right? And we are nobody to question that. If you want to question it, then that's fine because you can learn from it. But what I'd like to say is don't be skeptical. You can't learn what you pretend to already know. So therefore, keep an open mind. And don't be offended if someone has a different opinion than you have. It's a good thing. I like to be challenged, actually. I like to have what I say challenged. Even if I'm not able to persuade the other person, I'm still able to test what I believe and see whether it's accurate. And if it's not, then I'm able to adjust my opinions and my beliefs and my philosophies and my principles in order to make them more in line with my perception of reality. All right? So, guys, what I want to basically say is gold and silver, in my opinion, are investments because in changing your money, changing your currency that you receive for your effort and the value that you create into gold and silver is an action that you take with an expected benefit later on, even if that benefit is to protect you from inflation. You're doing it for the reason of a benefit later on. Or even if you're doing it to flip some semi numismatic coin or something, you're doing it because you believe that's the best thing you can do with your money. And if that's not the reason you're doing it, I'd be interested to hear what your reason is and what you think about what I'm saying. Um, so, gold and silver are investments, and gold and silver have historically been very reliable despite these confusing times with so many things going on, with so much information coming at us. It's nice to be able to invest in something which is tried and true over thousands of years. And that's why I invest in gold and silver. Okay, guys, tell me why you invest in gold and silver. Tell me if you agree with what I'm saying. Tell me if you have a different opinion. And this is Expat Stacker, and I'll catch you on the flip side.